Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison, that's right.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
I'm Becca Merkel.
And it's snowy, it's cold, and we are not on video today.
No, and it's foggy. She neglected to say foggy. It's really beautiful, actually.
It's been weird because it's been foggy all day but sunny. And when it does that, it's a beautiful effect.
You get the impression that there are not clouds in the sky, there are clouds on the ground. So it's like you can see that there's brightness happening in the sky, but you can't see it. But it's
But
interesting.
you're confident.
But,
that
like
it's
sometimes
there.
the clouds are up there like a huge muffly blanket. Like there's no brightness coming from
I
above.
love it when it's like that and you fly somewhere. So when you pop out above the clouds and all of a sudden the sun is just like streaming into the plane. I love that. I love that realization that the actual world is not sunless.
Yeah.
It's just our wormhole.
There's a lot of spiritual lessons in
There
that.
is, because it's like, no, God is actually in charge. And
There's a reason that the sun shining through the clouds is a metaphor that's been used
well, and it's
on and on and on.
I like how I was about to quote a Bible verse, but then I'm realizing it doesn't actually talk about the weather. It was the weeping endures for a night, but joy comes in the morning. But I guess I always thought of it as being, the sun comes up, like the night. It parallels.
Well, I like some days when it's snowy and everything, the sky is gray, like it's very gray. Today it's white. And it's like you can't tell where the roof ends and the sky begins because it's just white.
In the hills, everything, that's fun.
Yeah.
So, what have you been about?
I'm painting my living room. You should come see it.
A triumphant green?
It's not green.
Blue?
It's not blue.
What are you going to call that thing?
That is a valid question.
Actually, this reminds me, I have to retrace my steps. Last night, I was taking Shad to his basketball game. He's like 6. And, well, he actually is 6. He's not like 6. He is 6. And we came out.
Not a metaphorical 6
No, I
at
didn't
all.
mean loosely. He is. We came out from the basketball game and there's snow on the car. And so I'm scraping the car and this woman next to me is like, don't you just hate it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it's this gorgeous evening where the snow is like glitter. And I think we can all acknowledge that it's daffodil time. Like, this is what makes the daffodils all that, though. Mm-hmm. This is the time. And anyways, I said to her, yeah, but just think it could be brown. Like, it's so beautiful. And then I got in the car and Shad was like, or skin color. I thought, yes, you have thought of the worst of all possible colors for snow. If it was just a nice skin tone, how yuck that would be.
It actually doesn't matter what color of skin, it would be real bad.
No, any of it. It's just, actually anything but white would be really
oppressive.
Yeah, sand color, not nice. And then Shad and I had an edifying discussion about what if it didn't melt? What if it was just like pea gravel that came down and then you really had to shovel it and deal with it somehow? You got pea gravel in?
Well, this is on the hypothetical weather scenarios. This is what we were talking about yesterday is it was really kind of God when he put these enormous reservoirs of water floating around up in the sky to have them come down gently, because imagine if it came down like a bloosh.
Isn't that kind of what monsoon season is?
Well, no. I mean, remember the ice bucket challenge of a few years ago?
Yeah.
Where, what if a lake just smacked down out of the sky?
You didn't know it was coming, but there you went.
It would murder us all.
We'd have to live in, concrete tanks, just in case
or
the weather happened.
Because the thing is it's like a lake up there, and if it just suddenly dropped...
But with such an elegant delivery system...
Because think how much it would smack your house flat down. I mean, it would not. Water is heavy.
I just read Virgil Wander by Leif Anger, author of my favorite book you've never read. And
at this point, it's a point of pride.
I have now read 2 of his. Well, I think he's only written 3 books. Peace Like a River is just a magnificent book. So Brave, Young, and Handsome is is still, the writing is just as good, but the plot is a lot less satisfying. And that's the same with this one. The plot is not, the writing is still remarkable.
Okay.
But this one dabbled a little more in the weirds that Marilyn Robinson gets into.
Oh, sure.
Have you read her? You haven't read her either, probably, have you?
No.
Marilyn gets me down, is what she does. There's some good things in her. Like, there's some remarkable insights and great writing and interesting, but the one that really got me out of favor with her was Homekeeping. Is that the right? Housekeeping?
I don't know.
Whichever one. It's the one where she sort of reveals she has a fascination, it seems like, with the vagrant life. But the thing that got me down about that one is that is set in, like, Sandpoint area on Lake Pend Oreille, which is near us, and it is a beautiful lake. Lake Pend Oreille is gorgeous in the area, but the way she describes it all is so, like, dank and deathy and drawing people away into homelessness and dead fish. It's sort of... I thought,
way
Marilyn,
to focus on
what world are you living in? That is not
like
Lake Pend Oreille.
We live in North Idaho too, and it basically is.
I'd like
stunning.
to call your bluff.
That's funny.
Well, she wasn't saying it wasn't pretty, but it was weird. It was like if you wrote the whole thing about the view of Idaho from under the dock.
Guys, I just caught, oh my word, I just caught wind of myself in the rear view mirror. I can't see my face, I can only see the tip of my head.
It's because you just painted your living room, and
Yep.
there's a paint swatch in her hair,
Like
right on her scalp.
Suddenly I was like, wait, what is that
that's
thing
your
on my
drink.
head? And it's a clunk of paint, like, entwined in my hair. And I have,
But now I know, and good news, now I've got a good read on the color.
it's stuck to my scalp. Great. This is like, we could do a series on things Becca found in her hair. After home improvement stuff. I have washed it since then. It's
Better
like,
than a fly.
it's
Can
adhered
we all
to
just
my
agree?
scalp. Yeah.
Better.
Anyway, it's good to
Yeah.
know I've been having that on my head for 2 days. Right in the front, too. Like, right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Now we've covered that.
We've done that. All right, guys.
So my husband is on his way home from a trip. Nothing makes you think that parenting is a two-person job like having your husband go on a trip.
My husband is also on a trip, and so, of course, I got a flat tire and water in the basement. Like, as soon as he left town.
Why is it so horrifyingly hot in your car?
I'm just getting cozy now. Do you
Sorry,
hear that?
I'm sorry. I'm rolling my window down.
It's Rachel taking action.
It's the thermometer says 69 and 76, but it has got to be like 104 in here. It's so
See,
hot.
now I'm cold. Oh, my word.
All right. We got a little fresh air.
A little fresh air for Rachel.
So, I had a question that I thought we should talk about.
Are you changing the subject from what we said we were going to talk about? Because we actually went so far as to
I was
say
telling
we were
our
talking about
listeners.
something.
I was telling our
okay.
listeners back. You didn't need to like show my hand.
I'm like, are you or are you not forgetting what we just said?
No, I got a question from someone that I initially, I just think it bears more discussion. I think it's an interesting topic, and I think it's a good one. So, the question was, I think it was surrounding the publicity and things that I've been doing because of Yoo-Hoo. So, but also the podcast and anywhere where you're really putting yourself out publicly in such a way that people are free to criticize you publicly. How do you deal with the criticism?
Yeah.
And that was the question. How do you deal with the criticism, or how do you work through dealing with criticism?
That's a good question. And I think that isn't what I thought we were going to talk about. That's all right.
I realized, it is what I said. Here's what I realized in answering it. I realized that I actually have a lot of theology surrounding this subject that you don't usually express, but that we grew up learning it. We've learned it over,
but I would also say too, this is not a subject on which the Bible is silent.
No.
There is, if you just take a peruse through both the Old Testament and the New, there are a lot of people who are either showing you how to deal with, hostility about their prophetic, office. Think of Elijah. Or it's specific, like, this is Paul telling you what to do, or Jesus telling you what to do when people don't like what you're doing.
Right. So I would say the first thing to do is to not think that honestly, when people criticize my speaking style or how I phrased something
Or the fact that we interrupt each other too much.
we do that, I would like to call on all of our listeners. Would someone please rebuke Becca sometime for her poor manners on the podcast? Because I think it's always me.
I was generously saying we.
I think it has come through. I think it has come through before as that you are interrupting each other. Mm-hmm. But I think we all know the truth.
No, but the thing is
I'll raise my hand. Who's the Rudy one? Mm-hmm. Probably me.
But here's the thing. I'm
not going to interrupt you now, Beck.
Yeah. I was going to say, here's the thing, and then let Rachel finish my thought. No, I actually feel like I need to really fast rewind like a second to what I just said, because I don't want anyone to think that I was insinuating that we have a prophetic office like Elijah. So if anyone took it that way, let me hasten to assure you that is not how I meant it.
I did not take it that way, but I couldn't have taken it that way.
But
so.
I just somehow, you replay the sentence a minute later and you're like, hang on.
You were saying that there are samples
Let
in
us be
Scripture
clear.
where people have been through times of criticism.
Yeah. Yes. In Elijah's case, it was his prophetic office. Okay.
Right, we got derailed because
Not in ours.
I was saying if people are criticizing my speaking style or my writing style or this wasn't very clear or that was...
I feel like that's where you can learn from it.
Well, every time I'm like, it does not offend me. I genuinely often agree with people.
Sure. You're like,
right.
Turns out I was a bit vague. I should be more clear next time. Or
right. And sometimes
or you don't
might
agree.
differ with them, but you're just like, thanks for the feedback.
Yeah, if somebody says like you didn't qualify your remarks, and sometimes you think,
well, I did.
Okay, I should qualify more, or
right.
No, I don't think you'd have been happy with any qualifications I
offered.
offered. So
I feel
it's
fine about what I didn't do.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that there's that kind of criticism, and then there's just flat lying about you, and we have experienced that as well. So growing up in a pastor's family, of course that happens, and sometimes people say things about you that are true, and then other times they just make stuff up. And I feel like we've had both, in the course of our lives. And I think a number of people have experienced being lied about, and it might be something. So let's say that like your kids are accused of doing something that that they didn't do, bullying or just being whatever, vengeful on the playground or something. Okay. And let's say that you do diligence, because of course if something comes to you like that, you have to you have to check it out,
honestly,
particularly if it's about your kids, because they might be right. But let's say you were accused of bullying, or you're accused of being vengeful on the playground.
It'd be easier to give it an example where you don't have to go get other witnesses and people involved.
I guess what I'm saying is, okay, so let's make it first person. You're accused of
what if someone says
bratty.
You brought that dish to the potluck because you wanted to shame Patty Sue? And you're like, what?
Okay. Or,
no, I didn't.
I was thinking more like, you just think you're better than everyone because, or, like whatever, or you're accused of.
But it's something where you have full intel on the falsity of it.
And you know that it's not the case. Yeah. Right? Okay. And with your kid, I think I was thinking your kids, because we know how much you want to be like, that is not what they did, or it's not what I did,
to set the record straight,
or whatever. It's sort of like, I really need you to know that this is not true about me, right? And so if somebody's lying about you in any format, it might be just they're lying about you to you through a series of huffy texts, or it might be that they're lying about you to friends, or maybe they're lying about you to the internet.
Maybe they're lying about you by ferrying concerned prayer requests about you.
Yeah, there's all kinds of ways, and I just think everyone knows what it's like to be accused of something that you didn't do, and it might not be a criminal act. It might just be like you're accused of an attitude that you knew you didn't have, or you're accused of having nefarious motives, or accused of having kids that did X, Y, or Z, or whatever it is. And there's that instinct to have to set the record straight in every case.
Right.
And sometimes you can. Like if somebody isn't actually, like they came to you and said, "Hey, I saw you shoplift that yesterday when I was behind you at the grocery store." Then you could say, "Oh my gosh, no, like I brought that in myself." And then they could say, "Oh, I'm so relieved." Like sometimes
if they act,
sometimes they are there and they want to be reassured, but there's other times where it's not going to matter. Cuz you can defend yourself till you're blue in the face, and it's not going to matter because that's not what they're in it for.
Yeah, that never was the question. It's not an earnest seeking of truth. It's something else.
No, and if you could successfully dissuade them from one accusation, they would just morph immediately into the next one.
Right.
And I think that is kind of one of those cases where, don't cast your pearls before swine, sort of like there are certain mobs that aren't interested in hearing
right,
the
or
truth.
that answer the fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes. And then the second half, answer the fool, do not answer the fool according to his folly, lest you become like him yourself.
And that's easy to do.
That the moment where you're so offended by other people's internet fussing or other people's gossip about playground deeds, that you become the great gossip itself to handle it all, or you get bickery, or you let your heart be tangled up by it in such a way that now you are as malicious, you are as full of zeal for no godliness.
Yeah, now think about how many times...
Don't do that. That's what I'm saying.
If someone slaps you across the face on your Instagram feed, turn the other cheek.
Don't you wonder? What should you?
Slap back harder, which is what everyone's initial instinct is to slap back harder.
And I would say, though, it's an important... Like, there are things that social media makes more complicated, or it feels more complicated. Because on social media, if someone gets outrageous, there's this whole problem of like people feel really guilty unfriending someone.
Oh, sure.
Or like I don't want to be the one to act like we can't have any fellowship just because they're like I think sometimes Christian women are persuaded that they are the only escape hatch back into righteousness for people. Like my friendship is the one tie that binds them still to the church or something, instead of just saying we're obviously not friends if you're following this kind of life, and just wrapping it up and not letting it be the new patina of your whole life.
I do think the way some of these things start out, well, who knows where some of these things start out, but I think that they start in the heart of man. They do, and I think where do wars and strife come? It's envy often. What is it?
Or hurt pride. Sometimes
what is it? You something in lust and cannot obtain? Is it you murder? No, it's something else. It's not murder. Anyway, but the thing is, so these things they gather up a momentum, and I think what happens is you have the people out patrolling the internet with a fly swatter, trying to smack down any instances of things that they may find.
What's that joke that I can't come to bed? Someone's wrong on the internet.
But then you have somebody who sees that behavior and sees how uncouth it is, so they haul out their own fly swatter to go about and fly swat all the people with the fly swatters, and then
in general it's just a big unseemly episode. It's just not lovely. But a thing that I do want to say about that I feel really strongly about is that a lot of times Christian women, this is something, there are some topics where when I start talking, I feel myself teetering on the edge of I'm about to pull out my huge dry erase board with all the yarn connecty dots and my conspiracy theory. This is something it's not.
Is this one of those times?
This is one of those times I feel myself, I start to talk about it and I feel myself welling up inside because I want you all to feel this the way I feel this.
Okay.
with that warning, here I go.
comes the whiteboard.
No, yeah, but this is the thing, is that so many Christian women are intimidated by this problems that are kind of inherent in social media. And so we see the ugliness, or we see the problems, or like, that was so bad, or I was tempted to envy, or whatever. And so we retreat from the medium as though we couldn't just be Christian, like as though we couldn't be there. And it was the whole discussion of the 500 years since the Reformation that had me actually thinking about what would some of those great women of the faith who really just poured themselves out for the gospel, what would they think Facebook was an opportunity for?
Sure.
Would they be scared away easily, or would they actually think that this is worth working for? This is worth bearing with some of the
I think, too, though, sometimes there's a self-awareness that you need, where it's like, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off.
Yes, I agree with that. But the thing that I get excited about is, I keep saying this in various places, but women are naturally pretty gifted at things like someone shows their new purse on Instagram and everyone will be like, it's so cute, what a great choice, love this is, they have no problem with small encouragements.
Right.
What if we were using those things to actively try to build the kingdom?
Okay, I'll tell you what. Here's what. As soon as you have women, your seat heater's on, so you could always turn that off.
But that feels good. It's the air. I should shut these.
Yeah, shut your vents. The thing is as soon as you had women start to do that, like, let's say that a whole bunch of women actually started being righteous women on social media and doing it effectively, not about purses, but really it was a huge
driving each other
for the gospel,
to Christ, to the word.
What would immediately be the devil's choice?
I know.
Is let's shut that down.
How?
Right now.
How? With petty squabbles. With ugly fusses.
Squabbles. Like the little foxes that spoil the vineyard. And how many women...
Sometimes, let's just be real, sometimes they're also big mangy foxes.
Oh my word, I have to tell you
sometimes they're not little.
This is a parenthetical, unrelated, but I thought of it just now. My son is doing a bunch of research for a history paper, so he was at the university library, and the one who's in college, not the high school one. Anyway, he was looking through old newspaper articles because he needed period sources, and he found one that he was using, but down in the corner there was a little other, story, just a little small one. And I think this was it was a Northwest paper, so it was like in Seattle or something. Anyway, it was just just too poetic moment where an irritated skunk bit him on the arm right beneath his tattoo that said the word stinky.
What year was this?
In the 60s. But I was like,
but how do you get so close to a skunk that it bites you instead of spraying you?
It bit him, and it was on the word stinky, and I'm like, but what was your tattoo?
What was that for?
Who has the word stinky tattooed upon themselves, and why did a skunk bite it? But anyway, I was speaking of mangy foxes.
Yeah.
It might also be mangy, irritated skunks.
But the point is that what would be the quickest way to get women who are actually doing the kingdom work of encouraging one another in the word, fighting to take really that kind of all of Christ for all of life approach, there is nothing outside the authority of Christ, that approach. How would the enemy, if you were the enemy, what would you do to try to cow you into not doing that anymore?
Here's what it is. It is the battle in the Old Testament that I'm forgetting who was in charge. But when the Israelites went out in the morning and they had all killed each other in the night.
It was Jehoshaphat, wasn't it? Jehoshaphat leading it?
It's okay. We all know, because if we
don't all know, because we said, I think it was Jehoshaphat who...
Here's the thing. You have a threatening army looming.
It was the one where the choir went in the vanguard because they were obeying God, and he says, trust me. The God says, I will handle it.
And they just pick up the loot.
And all the enemies got mad at each other and fought and killed one another.
Okay, no, I think it happened a couple times, because I'm thinking of the one where they thought the enemy had come upon them, and then it's not one where they just started infighting. That's the one where they picked up all the loot. I thought it was they all thought each other was the enemy, and they had a panic, and they turned on each other and killed each other. And
but I know that there was one where the obedience to God had the choir in the front, because they were just obeying God,
now,
and then the enemy all fought each other.
If you have a bunch of Christian women who are all doing their duty before the Lord, they are staying right with God, they are absolutely nailing it in their stations. That is a threatening group of people.
Oh my word.
Joyful, but threatening to the enemy.
Scary to the moon and back.
And so
all the time I see.
If you can like distract them and turn them on each other, so that all of their effectiveness is spent in beating each other up and then tearing each other down, and then it's like, and the field is ours because they've all taken themselves out.
Let's worry, bicker, and let's turn this into an ugly on the internet competition. Because that's really a thrill for all of us involved.
And, exactly. And
it's
a perennial threat. And I think that there is no doubt that would play directly into the enemy's hands.
So the way that kind of thing can sideline effective work for the gospel, it's possible. But it is also, I just want to say, this is where I get a little passionate. It's also such an effective opportunity that it's well worth fighting for to not fall into that. It's well worth, like...
This comes back to the criticism thing. How do you deal with it? There's a lot of biblical teaching on it. Now, one of the things is, beware when all men speak well of you. If you have nothing but accolades from everyone, then probably you're not...
It's probably God is the one not giving you any accolades.
If you are out doing your job, it will draw hostility. It absolutely will. So that's one thing. The other thing is not being too proud to hear
legitimate
criticism, because nobody is above reproach. Nobody is sinless. So of course there are things that we could do better at.
Personally, I'll tell you what I think is the most effective mindset, the most effective way to deal with all of this, and that is that when you do something public, I really just can't encourage you enough to be in prayer about it and to know completely that you have offered this to God and that you have given it to Him, and you are not that if you're 100% confident, like it's like, Lord, I did this for you, I'm wanting to be faithful, use this as you can use this, like teach me through this, let me be part of some work that you're doing, all of those prayers, things that I have prayed over my book, all of those things. Then when you let the book go, there's a real confidence, like, I did what I could do unto God. I don't have any kind of idea that was the best thing any human has ever done. I'm not delusional. Yeah. We all know that that's not the case.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain kind of confidence that's just not self-confidence. It's just confidence that you did what God expected of you then, and you don't feel any concern about that.
Yeah,
it's
and then let's say that you have somebody who gallops up and breathlessly tells everyone, don't buy her book. She's promoting morbid obesity or something like that. I've just some random accusation, and you can look at it and be like, I'm not.
I feel good about that.
I feel good. It's not what I was doing, and whoever is saying that, they have their own agenda, and I'm just going to cheerfully move on, and I don't care.
No, that doesn't matter. I would say, and then
I'm sorry, the rearview mirror is pointed in, and every time I look over there, it's me, and it scares me to open it out.
So the thing that I would say about that also is that when it is things, when you've given it to God and you know what you're giving to God and why you're giving it to Him, then some of the criticism is just, it does not bother me, because there's things you can learn from, there's things, but you've given it to Him, and so in a way it's very safe where it is. You're not, and other things, like somebody, like on the podcast, we know what we're hoping God will use is just an effort at friendly Christian fellowship that we can legitimately do in our own schedules with what we can do. And so if somebody writes us to say, we don't like how unprofessional your work is, that's not offensive, because it's like, well,
it's all right.
that's fine. It's sort of like there's no obligation upon you to like how unprofessional our work is.
And the thing is sometimes when people accuse you of things, you know, like, let's say that they accuse you of a thing that you did, which is to be
maybe you said
angry.
maybe you said
no,
too many
I just
times.
mean like they wrote in and said you had been vicious and mean in your comments, and let's say you had been vicious and mean in your comments, then you should say, you know what, you're right, thank you for bringing that to me, I've repented to God, I will seek forgiveness elsewhere, thank you. That's the way to deal with it if it's a genuine
I just like to throw out there that knowing that that's how you'll deal with it if you did that kind of thing is a great deterrent. Much like if your child knows that if they steal a pack of gum, that they're going to have to go back and make restitution and apologize to everyone and repent. It is a much bigger deterrent from doing such things.
Exactly. But let's say that you got accused of something that is just irrational, which my favorite, well, no, we have a number of good examples, but one of the times that I liked in my own personal
I think I know what you're going to say, because
I got accused online by a woman who is a raging feminist and so forth, like hostile to me, and she accused me publicly and called for me to publicly repent of being anti-Semitic, which was epic.
Good.
It was epic because, just as a random factoid about us, we are partly Jewish, but since the Jewish way is to trace it through the mother, we actually are considered, according to the Jewish reckoning, to be 100% Jewish.
We could get Israeli
citizenship. So if we wanted,
didn't.
No,
but we could.
But we could. And so when I was accused of being anti-Semitic, and I was called to publicly,
our sister-in-law is
100. Well,
no,
half Jewish.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point is I feel pretty solid on the fact that I'm not anti-Semitic. And I didn't have to do too much soul searching on that question.
Yeah.
You know, it's sort of like, well, I feel good about it.
Wrong.
And the fact that you think I'm anti-Semitic, well, I'm not. And I don't care. Like, that's the thing, is like, I'm not going to apologize. I
didn't say anything that should have been interpreted that way.
I didn't say anything that you should have thought I was anti-Semitic. I told a story about during the Holocaust, the Jew who had sort of been used by the Nazis.
You referenced a Jew.
A historic situation.
Yeah.
I referenced, and then I was called out as an anti-Semite. Anyway, like, if somebody just is making stuff up about you,
who cares?
It's like, it's all right.
Let them have the punishment of being themselves.
If that's the best she can come up with, I feel pretty good.
It's like, because whatever blows your hair back. You know, I had in random accusations that don't trouble the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I had that conversation through the summer with some ladies who were really hustling to find my weak point, I think.
Sure.
But in the course of that, the accusations were the most monumental, incredible, and fast moving. Like, were I to be all of the things that they said I was, it would be amazing. But it was just whizzing around with things like, your husband doesn't even love you. He just pretends because he's afraid of your dad. This is from people who have never been into our town. Probably don't know my husband's name. That's why they called him your husband.
Also, they don't know your dad.
They don't know my dad. They don't know my husband. They don't know actually squat about any of it. But they were wanting to make sure that I got the word that Luke does not love me. He's only here because of his fear for dad. Which is... And I was like, man, this is an overpowering fear that has kept him with me for all 15 years.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
If he's afraid of dad, I would think the safest course would be to run away and distance yourself.
Not probably marry into the family, but no, and so funny, but also just so pointless. And then as soon as I didn't care that they said that, then they were off on what an evil mother I was. And then when I didn't care that they said that, they tried something else. And it was like a nonstop barrage of ugly things to have someone say about you. And I found out what that was. I actually wondered about it for quite a while, but I think it was just a straight up metal detecting for any bitterness in my life.
Oh, yeah.
Because the moment, if I had been like, well, I would like to distance myself from the, whatever decision the elders made, or let me tell you that they're just, personally, my husband doesn't always make me feel
they're
loved.
just knocking along the walls,
that was
searching for hollow spots.
But the moment, if I had shown any place where I was wobbling about on that, they would have been all over that thing. Like, because half the time they're saying you're a wicked, evil mother. I can't even stomach thinking about what kind of a person you are. And then the next sentence they'd be like, I know exactly how you feel, and I promise you we are here for you when you're ready to admit how oppressed you're being. and I know that that's what it is. They're trying to scare something out of you so that they can throw themselves all over it in a pandering, sympathetic, now you come under our wing and we will feed you morsels of evil.
I just have a thing here, is that we know that the devil is the father of lies, and they are one of his most effective weapons. Weapon of choice for the devil is lies. Now, if you picture them as, the fiery darts of the wicked one, it's like, what do you need is a shield to not let them hit you.
Guess what shield it is?
The way that you can
Guess the shield!
The thing is that, actually, don't let those barbs go in. We have the armor of God for a reason, and there's a couple of ways
in the armor of God.
The shield of faith, right?
Yeah, and then what is the word? All of it. The armor of God is
is all necessary.
Yeah.
The darts can hit you any place. Now, basically, the thing is I feel like there's the initial, one of the initial responses is to fire up in defense and anger at false accusation. That's one thing to do. Get angry, slap back harder.
Get angry, get even.
Get angry, get even. There's that. There's also the, try to make them see reason.
Oh, and plead and beg.
And that's never going to work because they're not interested in seeing reason.
A Christian should never be throwing themselves that it's not like a custom now, but that whole pleading for mercy, throwing yourself on your knees, grabbing, you should never be doing that to liars or to lies. We do not beg.
No.
We do not, who is the father of lies? You don't go begging for mercy there. You go to your father, who is the father of truth. You do not get yourself all...
So I was going to say, one is to, get mad, get even. One is to, think that if you could just explain it, then they would drop the charges, which is, no, they'll just pick something else. If they're not interested, if they're not really in it for your good, they're not interested. And then the other thing is, you could think that by admitting your fault and apologizing, that it will make it go away.
Well, I would say that's actually a different version of throwing yourself for mercy from the father of lies. Because, and we see that happen. We see that happen all the time in the Christian world, where somebody just would rather apologize to whatever god of the day is being worshipped than stand up and refuse to apologize because it is...
But let's say that when that lady had accused me, also in interesting tidbits, she wrote Ben a letter and told him he needed to call me to order, which was really funny given her particular take on life as a wild feminist.
Right.
But anyway.
A feminist until she wants a man to take charge of his wife.
But let's say that I had let that really get to me, and I'd been like, oh, she thought I was a racist, she thought I was anti-Semitic, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then I had abjectly apologized for any offense that my remarks might have caused to anyone who, that'd just be hideous, absolutely hideous, because I knew that wasn't true. I knew objectively that wasn't true.
Right.
So why would I lie to appease her? Because oftentimes it is a lie. Now you've just defected to the other team and you've started lying now. That is...
Right, and I think that because of the nature... Oh, I meant to bring this up when we were going to talk about this. Because I think I sent you that article that was amazing about stuff that happened with the Instagram yarn dyers, and it is the most bizarre bully festival.
Yeah.
Of just weird. It was like reading between the lines to infer that someone is being a crazy racist, because she said she was excited to be going to India.
Because she's always loved it.
Because she's always loved it, and she's really wanted to go to India, and she's super excited about this opportunity. And it was really about that level of there was nothing in it to be in any way. So there's all these people no, not at first. At first, everyone was like, so excited for you that you get to go to India, but then somebody came in and pointed out what
colonizing.
And something about having said that India was other. It was you're otherizing. You're making it seem like India is not the same place as where you live. And at first she was not apologetic, but then all the people who initially had been like so excited for you started apologizing for ever having supported her, until this poor lady was like dwindling down into a knitting racist that she never intended any, it was so clearly not what she meant, and it was so uncharitable of people to be reading it that way. And then she ends up begging for forgiveness and apologizing, and it's sad. It's a really sad story. But the thing that struck me about that was all these sorts of things. We are all, our culture right now has gone wild. You don't have to be a public figure to be vulnerable to this right now. Like, you don't have to be, everybody knows that the social media mob might come for you for no reason. At any moment if you misstep at all. And
you might be a high school girl with a prom dress that reminds someone of cultural appropriation.
You might just be somebody who never meant to do that, and then that happened. And so one of the thing that struck me was how much it's like the beginning of the Silver Chair, where they're at that school where the bullies are more interesting to the teacher than like where there are kids being bullied, but it's the instructors are more fascinated by the bullies than they are by the. So when something hideous is happening, it's the people inflicting it that everyone wants to nurture and understand more and do, I thought that's just an interesting
And I would just say that, like, don't be a part of the bully mob, and you can be unwittingly just by taking sides in internet fights when you actually really don't know. Like, you don't know the people, you don't know the situation, you don't know, and you feel like you do because you've read a bunch of stuff you found online.
Why did you read that as a question I have we not been called to do work?
And the thing is like, there are certain situations where you have to just know that you're never gonna know the whole story.
And there's a real wisdom in that old proverb of "not my circus, not my monkeys." And you're not part of the problem, and you're not part of the solution.
Right?
Why are you in the middle of it?
And if you're sharing a bunch of thoughts and observations and articles and passing things on, you have to know that you might actually be furthering slander, or you think that you're standing for justice, and you might actually be just promoting slanderous things about people, so I would just say be hesitant to join in, especially to mob hysteria of any kind. But I think that's also, like, we were talking about this too, is don't be a liar yourself. Like, don't participate in that kind of thing where you can unwittingly become like a little pawn in the enemy's move of lying. But I think too, like, there are a lot of I think there's a lot of people who have a lot of lies on their conscience that they should stop and get right. Because it can start super small with the little, like, what we always called in our house quick lies. The the quick, not quite true.
No, when actually a good example of that would be when someone says something stupid. And like one of your kids says something stupid, and everyone looks at them like, surely you knew. And then they're like, I know I was just kidding, because they realized that they did something stupid. For one of my kids, it's a family legend, was the time. Daphne likes to tell the story. She likes this one, where she said suddenly in the kitchen, "What if you cooked an egg inside its shell?" And everyone stood there for a second, and it was like, do you mean a hard-boiled egg? And then she was it was actually like a moment of pure invention in her mind, and she forgot that she actually knew about hard-boiled eggs and that's been done.
Right.
Well, she didn't lie about it. It was just a funny joke. But I'm talking about that kind of moment where you actually really were having a mental lapse.
Yeah.
Where you shared your innovation that what if, just follow me closely, what if you cooked an egg inside of its shell? And someone is like, oh my word, you forgot that that's already been done? And then you said, no, I didn't. I just thought it'd be funny if I said that.
Yeah.
That's the lie that was just to try to get some
cover.
Equilibrium in the moment.
Yep.
But it was
like,
not accurate.
Don't be a participant in the little lies. Like,
And we talked about this on here before. The ones that say, I just really have a headache right now, or I really don't feel good right now. Who's your fact checker?
now,
The Lord. The Lord is your fact checker.
If you use lies as a quick defense mechanism, and you feel like they aren't real big lies, they're just little ones,
Or they're for the good of the people.
Or it's just like, but
Just
if
lied a little bit for the
if
people.
I like had told the truth to my kids, then I would have lost my moral authority on whatever I was trying to, or whatever. Or
Right.
you're trying to cover up something, whatever it may be. Often the lie is the second criminal act. Like there's the first thing you did, and then you lied
Right.
about it. Which, let's just say, nothing makes it worse like telling a lie about it does.
Dad is fond of saying, there is no counseling situation that you cannot make worse through sin. There is no
No, and if
end of the road that you couldn't make worse.
No, and if you start excusing those little things in yourself, those little quick lies, then you're using, instead of the shield of faith, it is faith, right? The shield of faith.
I think so, yeah.
Instead of using the shield of faith, you're using a shield of lies. Like, you've actually, you're using lies to protect yourself.
I've always told our boys, I'm probably told our girls this, but it's much more of a boy metaphor, so that's the one that I remember, is that, whenever we're watching like a football game, the little boys are like, which color are we cheering for? Which side are we going for? And I've always just said, when you tell a lie, even if your mom and dad don't know about it, you are putting on the jersey for the enemy.
Yep.
The devil is clothed in lies, and God hates lies, and you are to be on God's team. And when you slip into the uniform of the enemy, whoops, you're not on God's team when you're doing that.
Right. And if you take lying actually seriously, this ties into what we were just saying. Like, you want to be so cautious in what you join in on in public discourse, because you don't want to be accidentally furthering the devil's agenda by leaping in and,
No, you don't want to
your
pitch
voice
in, because you can be tricked into lies. You can be tricked. And I think that this is why there's really so much to say about all of this. But the thing that I want to encourage women to do is that if you have been affected by this kind of thing in some way, and I'm assuming, of course, if you had something you need to put right, go deal with that.
Yeah.
But what I really mean is, if you've been affected by the splatter spray of nasty lies, it's like you're just standing on a sidewalk and a huge truck blows through some kind of evil deeds puddle and it sprays all over you, and you're genuinely innocent.
Yep.
That you didn't mean to be there, but you just feel sick. You can't believe that this is actually happening. In that case, rejoice in the Lord. Turn away from that. Go do. There's so many better things for you to be doing.
Yeah.
We have the good news of being able to go change our clothes and get out of that, change
and just
the clothes.
because you got splashed by the truck doesn't mean now you need to get down in the puddle.
It was not a calling.
Search around in there to see what it might have in it.
It's that great missionary phrase, the need is not the call. That is the fact that you've identified a place where truth needs to be put does not mean that you are called to get in there and handle it all and do all of that. And it's not. It's a very, very entangling kind of a tar baby place to be.
And I know we've said this before, but when Paul tells women not to be false accusers, I think we should take it seriously. That might
It's not
be
just
a thing.
Paul, it's one of the 10 Commandments to not bear false testimony.
Well, that's valid. But I mean, like, he specifically mentions women.
Yeah.
To not be false accusers. And if that's the case, you should just take it seriously as, like, what are the places
Where would I maybe falsely accuse someone?
Well, in our world, where might there be women who are falsely accusing? And is it possible for me to get swept up in a quarrel that is not my own on the interwebs?
Of course it is.
And
but
furthering it.
And this is where I want to say, don't let that kind of thing keep you from the actual gospel work, because this is what is there to distract us from the things that are valuable that you could be doing.
Yeah.
And don't lose sight of what the goal is. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Work on, like, I think there's so much good work to be done on social media. Well, you've heard me a bunch of times talk about, like, the Bible reading challenge about this. What if we doubled down instead of reading smutty articles about things that might have happened somewhere?
No.
Instead of that, what if we doubled down in encouraging one another in the Word and in prayer and praying for one another? Well, would that maybe be more kingdom building?
But also, I will say, if you're doing that, it will draw enemy fire.
Yeah.
And so, like, let's say that you're like, okay, enough with this social media thing. I'm just going to reach out to my neighborhood and I'm going to double down and I'm going to be, a witness, and I'm going to be doing my job as a Christian mother in this neighborhood. And let's say you start being, like, really effective, okay, on your block.
Say you've got, like, a whole neighborhood revival going on.
Yeah, let's say you have a neighborhood revival on your block. And then, suddenly, out of nowhere, one of the neighbors starts lying about you and saying things that aren't true.
It will be. This is a fallen world.
It will happen. And the thing that you should say when that happens is, it's working. Like,
yes, you should. And
I'm being effective enough to be noticed and to be slandered, and that is actually a badge of honor.
It makes me laugh, because when this kind of thing when it comes up, one of the things that I want to be really careful to do is just, I thank the Lord for it. Like, and I know that whatever enemies we have, whatever people are industriously working against what we're doing, I know that they're not outside of the Lord's control.
No.
They're not sending trials to me. God has this in,
Totally.
This is all about how I serve the Lord. Where do I get encouragement? What am I supposed to be doing here? And nothing to do with, and at the end of the day, if social media trolls came and got me and imprisoned me and took everything away, it would still be okay. Like, it would still, because the reality is nothing can separate us from the love of the Father. And there is I absolutely believe that no matter how bad things God is in charge, and that He is in control, and that we just want to seek to honor Him and to do what we need to be doing, and not leave our battle stations because we're afraid of things.
And the thing is like, let's say your neighbor or your internet neighbor begins to start up a lie about you. Well, ask God to show you if you are in sin, and if you are not, and you have a clean conscience before God, then know that if it was good enough for Jesus, it should be good enough for you to be lied about.
Right? What about Joseph? Think of poor Joseph, imprisoned for sex offenses that he never committed. I mean, think of it. And not only that, first sold into slavery by his brothers for sins he did not do, right? Like, he was, for not sins, but they were offended at him, though he was not being sinful.
Right.
And they sold him into slavery, and then, from then, he gets accused of sex crimes and thrown into jail. And then he's there for a long time.
Can we just have a moment to say, I bet Potiphar's wife had a nice, sympathetic group of friends who were all like, oh, I can't believe he would do that to you. Now, the thing is...
Little perv. But the point, my point is just, think, if you don't believe that God is actually in charge of things, then there's a lot of reasons to despair.
Right.
But when you know that this is you just seeking to obey God, there's no reason to despair. There are times, yes, there are more particular trials, and there are times that require more processing in your own obedience of how am I going to deal with this. But don't And actually, I need to pull this up because this is such a pertinent Bible verse. It's Psalm 31. That says, 31:20, you shall hide them in the secret place of your presence from the plots of man. You shall keep them secretly in a pavilion from the strife of tongues.
Gosh, yeah.
Isn't that on point?
Yep.
Don't be afraid. Like, I just think mind your own tongue and don't be afraid of others.
Yeah, exactly.
I like how we really carried the day on that. We have no time for tips.
No, we gotta
wrap this thing up. And
yeah, we do.
Because we had that first.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Because we messed it up and now we've spent all your time. So, did you have any?
Do you have a tip?
Quick tips.
Hot tip for the day.
You go first, Beck.
Gosh, that's hard.
Okay, needlepoint. That's my tip.
Whoa.
Do a needlepoint. I say this because we probably all have a needlepoint from our grandmothers or great-grandmothers somewhere. They last forever. Mm-hmm. They're very classic, kind of cool. I'm into needlepoint right now. Yeah. But it is about in energy and mental effort. It's the same as a coloring sheet. It's like adult color. There's no, it's like you just are doing a really repetitive thing. But at the end, you'd have an heirloom.
There you go.
Instead of just a coloring sheet.
Heirloom kits.
That takes very little mental thought. My my place that I like to get them from, they're not cheap, is Ermine Tapestries. And then there's another one that's called Glorophilia that I have gotten off of eBay that are really pretty. But Pearl Soho carries some that are more modern-y ones. Like if you're feeling like good heavens woman, you mentioned needlepoint. That's what the grannies do. Let me tell you, it's also what I do. The grannies and me. We're on the same. The grannies and me, but there are more modern ones that are not. Like Ermine has some like calf facet. They have some more modern designers too in there. So
cool. All right.
That's my tip.
Get into needlepoint, everyone.
Mm-hmm. But at the end of your doodle festival, you'll have an heirloom, which is much cooler to have than because you're not going to give your grandkids the coloring sheet.
No.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Which reminds me of that meme that was so funny. Someone was like, Grandpa, how did Donald Trump get elected? and how did that ever happen back in your time? It's like, I don't know, son, but it was the same year the adult coloring books came out. Like, we were all pretty vacant. We were pretty distracted and not really tuned in. We were doing the adult coloring books and we just lost track. Mm-hmm. All right, so did you have something?
No. That's good.
All right, good enough for us.
Everyone,
see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You think of yourself now, and then in 4 years' time, what do you want yourself to look like? And is the education that you're considering going to help you get to that place?
When you're a student, you want to become like your teacher. You're going to become like your teacher. Looking at NSA beforehand, I knew I wanted to become like the men who are teaching here.
Fireman, husband, father, doctor, no matter where you want to go, NSA is just such good preparation for the person that you want to be.
If you want to be an effective Christian, you need to be able to lead and shape culture. If you want to do that, no matter what your occupation is, you need to shape yourself, prepare yourself as a person for that job. And liberal arts is, I think, the best education you can have for that.
To learn more, check us out online at nsa.edu.